Hello beautiful people, my name's Amanda Zito. I'm a motorcycle content creator. I've been to every state in the lower 48 on a motorcycle. I just released a new cookbook called the Motorcycle Camp Cookbook. It's based on my experience of cooking overland for the last 10 years. And today we're going to make one of the recipes out of that book called Skillet Lasagna. It's a one serving recipe, so you can double it as needed, but it's super easy. It's very simplified from traditional lasagna, but it still gets the basic flavors across. So when you're in the middle of nowhere and you're like, I would really like lasagna right now, you can scratch that itch. We're gonna chop up a shallot first and get that going in our skillet, and then we can prep our other ingredients while that cooks. I really like using shallots because it's so much easier to get a single serving of a similar flavor as an onion with a shallot without having to carry a whole onion. It's so nice. And from my experience, shallots don't make me cry as bad as onions do, so it's a win-win all around. There we go. I use a much smaller cutting board than most people probably think of for what cutting boards they use at home, but that's because it's nice and compact, so it fits in the saddlebag on my bike, and it's small enough that it's never cracked in the middle. I've tried carrying bigger cutting boards before, and it seems like the bigger it is, the more likely it is to just snap in half, just from the pressure of the rattling of the bike. I'm gonna squeeze a little bit of olive oil into the pan. We'll get that going over a slow heat, and we'll add our shallots to it. Come on. There we go. There we go. Get them all nice and coated in the oil, and then we'll let those cook on low heat until they turn translucent. We have a lovely, juicy, organic beef tomato that I picked up at Sprouts today. Normally I really like to stop at farmers markets, but Sprouts is pretty close. When you're cooking over a backpacking stove or something with very limited fuel, you want your ingredients to be chopped as finely as possible, so it takes less time for those to cook through. So I'll get the tomato chopped into slices, and then we'll chop it into some fine cubes, partially so that this is gonna be the base of our skillet sauce, or the lasagna sauce. So the finer you can get the tomato chopped up, the more similar texture it's gonna have to a regular tomato sauce. Having a sharp knife is very important for this. Shallots are translucent, so we're just gonna start adding the tomatoes as we finish chopping chunks of them. It gives us more room on our cutting board, and also everything can cook at a different rate, which means you'll have parts of the tomato sauce that's gonna be like nice and cooked down and caramelized, and then other parts that are gonna be a little bit more fresh and have that fresh tomato texture, if that makes sense. It's also just a more natural way of cooking. There we go. When you're cooking over a very small flame like this, where all the heat is concentrated in the center, you want to move your food around to make sure that everything is getting even access to heat, so everything is cooking more evenly. If you're gonna make something that's gonna like sit like this for a little while, you're gonna want to move the pan in different spots over the heat to make sure that every part of the bottom of the pan is getting even heat. Okay, our tomatoes all nice and chopped up. We're gonna add some garlic powder. Obviously fresh garlic would be superior, but garlic powder works in a pinch. Get it? Pinch, because that's how much we're gonna put in. Teaspoon. Oh, that's not nearly enough. 2 teaspoons. Measure with your heart. You know, some people like garlic more than others. I'm in the loving garlic camp, so we'll stir that up so all the spices get evenly distributed in the good stuff. We'll add a little pinch of salt. The amount is totally up to you, until it tastes good, really. Yes. That's how you know if there's enough salt, is you taste it and it tastes good, good. That's the amount of salt you need. We're gonna let the tomato mixture cook down for about 5 minutes until it kind of reduces a little bit. Some of the tomato juice is gonna cook off, and the skins and everything are gonna get a little bit wrinkly, and the pieces of tomato aren't gonna be as firm anymore. That's what we're aiming for. I carry a tiny little windscreen like this to protect the flame of the camp stove, so that when I'm cooking things, you're preserving way more of your fuel because you're not fighting the wind, getting the heat up to your source. Also, when you're cooking on a remote canister stove like this, you can use the short windscreen, and when you're cooking in a skillet, it makes sure that all of that heat is centered around the outside of the skillet, making sure that there's even heat going all the way around. And the wind is less of a problem. All right, it's been about 5 minutes. The tomatoes have cooked down good. The juices from the tomatoes have evaporated and really cooked down, concentrating that tomato flavor. So it's gonna taste good. And now we're going to break up some lasagna noodles and add a little bit of water so we can cook our pasta. So a giant box of lasagna noodles. You do not need this many lasagna noodles. If you can find a grocery store that has bulk bins that has the little tiny casserole lasagna noodles, those are perfect. But it's way easier to find big lasagna noodles in the middle of nowhere. I have been at a gas station in Wyoming and found giant lasagna noodles. So it's clutch. So we're gonna break up a couple of these into small, like 1 to 2 inch pieces so that they cook nice and evenly. And we'll chuck them in there. It's so satisfying to break lasagna noodles. You could do about 2 of the big pieces is good for about 1 person. You can add more if you want to. Just adjust your water if you add more noodles. All right, now we're gonna add about a cup of water, just enough water that barely covers the noodles. There we go. Yeah, just like that. We're gonna sift it around, make sure the noodles are nice and buried in the tomatoes and the water. We're gonna bring the water to a boil and then reduce the heat until it has a low simmer until the pasta is cooked through. If you don't know how to check when pasta is done, if you pull out a piece and bite it in half, will be a cross section in the middle of the starch. If it's still white in the middle, that means the pasta is not cooked all the way through. If there is just a small little discoloration in the middle, that means the pasta is al dente. And then if there's no discoloration in the middle at all, it means that it's overcooked. But I will leave that to your discretion. I'm Sicilian, so pasta has to be al dente. It's important. I'm pretty sure my ancestors would be very upset otherwise. Once the water is boiling, I like to just stir everything around wait till it bubbles up again to make sure that heat is distributed around the whole thing. There we go. Okay. Then we'll reduce the heat to a low simmer, which means that it's still bubbling, just not as drastically. And we're not using quite as much fuel. Yay! You want to leave it uncovered for this because you do want the water to reduce as it cooks. And that'll be about, should probably take about 15 minutes. And then you can bite into the pasta, make sure that it's cooked through the way that you like it, and then we'll do the next thing. We've cooked down the water enough so that when I pull back with my spatula, liquid doesn't immediately fill the pan. And so that's how we know we're about done. And the last thing I'm gonna check is make sure that a noodle is cooked all the way through before we moved on to the next part. So you wanna see, you can see in the cross section of the pasta where I bit through it, there's just a little bit of white, and that's what's left of the starch. And it's not fully hard. So when you bite into it, there's a little bit of chew, but it's not crunchy. And that's what we call al dente. So we know that it's done now. Got it? Especially for something like this, because the noodles are gonna continue to cook in the hot sauce. So you want us to pull it off when it's al dente instead of all the way cooked through, because then your noodles will just become a gooey, gummy mess. Okay, we're gonna turn off our heat. We can get rid of my windscreen now. And I've got some lovely feta and some awesome Parmesan. Parmesan is not negotiable. If you're gonna make this, Parmesan has to be in it. Normally, of course, lasagna has ricotta and mozzarella in it. Mozzarella and ricotta are pretty much full fat cheeses, which means in heat, they're gonna sweat a ton. They're not gonna stay good for very long out in the wild. Also, I don't know if you've noticed, but when you get a thing of ricotta, it's like a big tub. I think the smallest thing of ricotta I've ever seen is still almost 2 cups of ricotta, and that's way overkill for what we're doing. So I like to sub feta because I can eat this all in one go. And sometimes you can luck out and you can get the small packets of feta that they sell for salads, and that's also key. Like, it's like the perfect amount for a single serving. Anyway, I don't normally carry a grater on the bike, so I'm just gonna chop these up on the cutting board, super easy. I'm gonna break up the feta into chunks, and we'll add the cheese to our business. This is also when we're gonna add a little bit of basil and oregano. I like mixing them together at home and making a little Italian mix and putting it in these little screw top Nalgene jars. That's how I like to carry all my spices, so I get to carry exactly the amount that I want. And I've never had one break open on the bike, which is saying something because there's a lot of vibrations. They're so handy, and you can get them at craft stores. You can get them, I've actually seen them at art supply stores because some people use them to store paint. But little screw top Nalgene jars for the win. Stir that together. Hi. Normally about like a half a cup of Parmesan. Do what your heart tells you. The other excellent thing about Parmesan and other hard aged cheeses is that they travel really well without a cooler, which matters to me on the bike because I don't normally carry a cooler. They'll get a little bit sweaty, but if you carry it in some cheesecloth and then wrapped in tin foil, that normally deals with most of the sweat that you're gonna experience with a hard cheese. But don't be afraid just to like carry a paper towel, and if the cheese gets sweaty, just dab it off. It's still okay. As long as it still smells good, we're golden. It's the look and sniff test. Get that mixed in so it has time to melt in there, become nice and creamy. Stir that in so it has time to get nice and gooey from the residual heat of the noodles and the tomato mixture. And then we'll add just a little bit, about a 1/4 cup of feta. We're just gonna chop it up here. See, it's like a little bit sweaty because of the heat, but I have my trusty little rag with me, and we'll just dab off the sweat, and it will be just as new. There we go, that's better. much more palatable now. And then feta is nice because you can just kind of break it into chunks. I'm gonna toss it in there. And the crumbles. Of course, you could just buy the crumbles if you wanted. This is why when you're cooking on the ground like this, it's really important to put some kind of sheet or a bandana or something down so that when cheese flops out of your hand, you can put it back in your food without being covered in dirt. But dirt's just minerals, right? And then if you had fresh basil, that would be killer. Definitely add that if you got it. If not, I'm just gonna add a sprinkle more of my dried seasoning on top of this. And then we can eat. The best part. There we go. Maybe not the most beautiful lasagna you've ever seen, but it's delicious. And crazy thing is that I just made that with kit that fits in 2 little bags. This is all of my kitchen kit and this is my pantry. And it all fits in a 30-liter saddlebag. All right, that's our super simple skillet lasagna. Really pared back and very easy to make. Even on very limited tools, you could do this in the middle of nowhere. I believe in you. And I hope that you try it because it's delicious. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you later.